I have begun.
Assalamu alaikum. We were talking about money just now, and I just wanted to share with everybody that for the first time, I think, ever, I fell for a phishing scam.
Oh,
Bro.
okay.
Bro. Can you imagine me,
Mr.
falling for
Youth,
something?
Mr.
Exactly.
Young,
Just shows how old I am.
Mr. Tech Savvy.
So let's set the scene, right? Take a sip of my peppermint tea. Mufti was talking about peppermint tea, so I had to get some peppermint tea, bro.
True disciple.
True disciple. Anyway, so Eid was recently, right? Eid Mubarak to everybody. This is the first episode since Eid. Alhamdulillah, I may or may not have purchased some gifts for my wife, right? So we're expecting a delivery from Hermes. You know Hermes?
Yeah.
They deliver stuff. They got a bad reputation. Anyway,
Yeah.
however, on the day that the delivery was meant to come, my whole road was closed because they're filming a movie here. There's a movie called My Policeman. Apparently, it's got some.
Okay.
Funnily enough, yeah, there's a. Oh, what was that noise? Harry Styles,
Harry
some celebrity,
Styles. Who's
some
that?
celebrity guy. I don't know. I think he used to be a musician. Apparently, he's an actor now. He's like the star of the movie. Anyway,
Okay.
my whole road. So they're filming literally in front of my house. So we had like anyway, amazing to see that kind of setup and how they film films and stuff. It's quite interesting. They turned the whole street into the 90s. So they took all the shops that are on my high street. They changed the billboards on them to like all these 90s billboards.
Wow.
They changed next door was like a Savers, and they changed that into a VHS store, like old school VHS rental store. They put like old telephone boxes. I say old, but the ones from the 90s, you don't really find them that much. They've put them down here. All the cars, so we weren't allowed to park our cars here. All the cars they brought in were all from the 90s, which was really cool.
Did they pay you?
No, I wish they did.
What
Because
the hell?
fortunately, I've got a back exit to my flat. So instead of walking straight into the set, I could walk straight out the back. It did inconvenience me a little bit because I had to go in and out of the house.
Do you think they
But
paid the shops?
definitely, yeah, I'm sure they
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
Because none of the shops could run that day. Like they weren't open for business.
Okay.
Because they had loads of extras, loads of stuff. And I know it's going to be like, they did a day worth of filming, but I know it's probably going to be for like a 5-second clip or 10-second clip.
Yeah.
Honestly. Because, it literally, you just had all these extras just doing it again and again. How many takes? Anywho, I went on a tangent there. But anyway, they're filming on our road. So the road was closed. So I was expecting the delivery that we had to be cancelled. Okay. Anyway, that morning, I get a text message saying, hey, your delivery has been cancelled. Please click this link to redirect it.
Okay.
Not realising that they send me this stuff all the time and I ignore it because I know I'm not expecting anything. But today
Yeah.
I was focused on expecting something.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I clicked it. It pops up to a Hermes website page that looks, I'll be honest, 100% legit. The only thing I realised later was that loads of the links don't work. So if you click on certain buttons, they don't work. The only buttons that work are the ones they want you to click, right? So straight away, it's like asking me for £2.99 or whatever to pay to redirect it. And I was like, why? I told my wife. I remember telling my wife, I was like, why do I got to pay to redirect it? It's not my fault that the road's closed.
Yeah.
Oh well, forget about it. I paid for it. But then as I'm putting it in, I'm like, why is it asking me for details it never asked me for? Which is like not all my bank details, not my PIN or anything, but just my name, my address, and like to pay, obviously, card number. And so I was like, okay, whatever. And then like 5 minutes later, after I did it, I was like, oh, they never charged me the £3 or whatever they wanted to take. Oh well, forget about it. Then like halfway through the day, bro, alhamdulillah, I'm with Monzo. Monzo sent me a thing saying, can you approve this transaction? And it wasn't anything major. It was like £75 on Adidas. I was like, no, I'm not.
Wow.
And then it all made sense. It all made sense what I'd done. And then I got an actual actual message from Hermes saying, your delivery's been delayed. We'll deliver it again tomorrow. That was it.
Wow.
So I cancelled my card and I just ordered a new one, which came today. So it came like the next day, which is great. But, bro, they're getting good, man. Honestly, it used to be very, very easy to tell. But I get, even on my work phone, subhanAllah, and this is my work phone here, I need to switch it off. Even my work phone, considering it's like business only, I'm getting Royal Mail messages, Hermes messages, all these sort of messages to say, you've missed a delivery, Well, I get phone calls sometimes. Get phone calls on here.
If you think about it, how many people are receiving a delivery on a day? Like, the average person, they might get 3 deliveries a week or something.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there's a high probability they're going to get them at the right time. They're probably going to get like 20-30% of them, right? They're going to get them on the right day.
And how easy is it to send an email or a text message, especially when it's like you could send 1 million in one go, like click a button, you're sending thousands in once.
Yes.
And then if a couple of people, it's effortless. If a couple of people accept that and take part in that, and then it's an easy investment to make, isn't it?
It reminds me of one of these Vice documentaries of these credit card scammers in America. Maybe you've seen it. They're they got the cards, they got this machine which kind of puts I don't know what it does. Maybe it's the magnetic strip. I don't know what it does, but they basically, I guess they find the card numbers online. They find the details online. I don't know why they use physical cards though. What are they doing with the physical cards? I can't remember. But I just remember how Vice is. Well, I have no idea how they do it. They go to these criminals and it's like they're happy to be filmed. And they're they spend, I don't know, a few $1,000 on the card, and then the card will stop working, whatever. Then they go make another one, and they just live life like that.
One thing they do is criminals in the fraud sort of sphere will sell information. So they'll sell, if they have a list of people that are basically, they call it a suckers list, people that actually buy into this stuff. Generally, it's tends to be old people or vulnerable people. Then they'll sell that information on to other people to make money off of them.
That's cleaner, actually, yeah.
Yeah, they become inundated with
that's stuff. Less risky because I'm not actually spending from the cards. I'm just giving you the card information. You get caught, I'm just going to stay.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's very difficult to get caught. It's very difficult to track. It's the biggest arena of crime, but it's the least sort of... there's the law enforcement and stuff. They can't do much about it. This is why the onus is always on the consumer and the onus is always on the individual to protect themselves. It's just one of those things. That's also why
you've got the bank, what's it called? The bank guarantee kind of thing, right? You're guaranteed up to £80,000 if you. Yeah. So if
I think subhanallah, bro, I think that's only if the bank make a mistake. Do you understand? I don't think it's on you.
I mean, it happened to someone I know. And they were a few £100 was taken, was charged from their card. Yeah. And they called the bank, and the bank's like, oh, sorry, they sent them the money back.
Really, yeah. Because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it depends what it is.
But I think what happens as well, especially with these, I don't know actually if it's different from the mainstream banks to the, digital banks. But I think they've definitely got some sort of algorithm in place to detect if thingy is dodgy or not, because I use Revolut, and Revolut sometimes when I'm paying for something with a card, it will ask me to approve it from the app on my phone, right? And sometimes it won't, and I thought it was to do with the amount I'm spending, but sometimes it's just £10 and it will still ask. So there must be something where they're there are certain criteria for a dodgy transaction.
Yeah, it could be a location-based thing. It could be. Yeah. I mean, £75 on Adidas. Is that the first? It could be that. It's probably something online that they're doing. A lot of the time, it's gift card scams or buy gift cards and then try and refund them or all this other stuff. But a lot
gift cards are one of those ways that dodgy people use money, isn't it? Basically, before cryptocurrency was a thing. Actually, I think people they buy gift cards with cryptocurrency so they could be completely anonymous that way, something like that. Because you still can't buy stuff online with cryptocurrency in most places. So that was, must have been 3-4 years ago when I was into cryptocurrency. That was the big thing. It's this is the currency that is going to start being the one that people use to sell stuff online with, and you can actually pay with it online. And there were all these names popping up, but zero of them today, 3-4 years later, still zero are accepted as a currency to buy stuff online.
Yeah, even Tesla was selling cars with Bitcoin, and now they've doubled back on that, haven't they?
So that was the whole environmental thing, right?
Yeah. So a brother actually messaged me about because I put out an NFT a while ago, and I think I might have already mentioned this on the podcast, but he messaged me about the environmental impacts that these kind of things have.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I haven't looked into it. I still haven't looked into it. I don't know. I've been preoccupied with other stuff. But you know, what doesn't expend energy in this day and age? But it's one of those things. If it's new technology,
you could say useless, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there are people that say, you know, there'll be a positive change for it, and as technology improves, then the environmental impact it will have will be lessened.
Yeah,
but
they've been looking into that. I mean, I think definitely Ethereum, they've been looking into how we can do this without, well, maybe for everyone, so they understand. If they don't understand, I think I get it. The reason there are the environmental concerns is because in order to mine these cryptocurrencies, you need to basically set up a computer basically to do work, right? To calculate, do formulas, crack formulas, equations. And when it does that, it's done the work, and then after doing that work, it will unlock like that currency, if you like.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Even when a transaction is done, so you want to send Ethereum to someone, work needs to be done for that, right? Because the different points in the Ethereum network, they need to validate that has moved from one place to another, right? Mm-hmm. And again, that requires work. Actually, they call it proof of work, you know, in the thing. So that's what they're saying, basically. Imagine, you know, a warehouse full of servers just doing these equations, you know, and there's a lot of electricity, man. It's a lot of electricity. So that's what I was saying, like, this is kind of a waste of electricity. Like, we created a new currency that needs to use all this electricity, and, you know, the traditional one never needed it. So it's kind of going backwards in that way. And I think China cracked down on it now, but some people over there, some people in Russia, they got huge warehouses, just server after server after server. And I know one guy here, I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, one guy who moved here from the US, that's what he does for a living. He just got the server in his bedroom, and it's he's got one only, just one, you know, he's got the GPU and all that doing the work. And it's just there, and he's like, you know, I make a living just leaving it there to do its thing. And I'm like, some people say, you know, it's kind of a waste of electricity. He's like, my bill's like lower than everyone's bill. Like, don't worry about my bill, kind of thing.
Yeah. I suppose, you know, it's always going to have its critiques. It's always going to have its sort of detractors, so to speak. But you know, they say that a lot of countries that are in such financial ruin, like, let's say, I remember reading an article about Lebanon. They were in such a difficult financial situation. They were saying that if they were like, it just takes one country to sort of put that foot forward, and they say that, you know, obviously it's a big risk, but if that one country did so, they could literally turn their economic situation around completely. But Allah knows best.
How could they do that though?
Because if they adopted it as their mainstream sort of currency.
Yeah, but you know, the problem with people's currency, because like Lebanon is like Turkey in a way where the currency is worth very little now, compared to the past and compared to the US dollar, etc. And what's the problem with having a weak currency is when you're importing stuff, it costs you so much, right? And you need to get the dollars. Like, where do you get the dollars from? You have to buy the dollars, and it costs so much of your currency to buy it. You can't just print more of your currency to buy more dollars, because then you'll have inflation or whatever. So the problem is with importing. That's what I understand anyway. So if, you know, let's say oil, I think everywhere in the world needs to be bought with dollars.
Yep.
Obviously, that's the monopoly they have on the world, and that's why the dollar is the number one currency. So if I start using Bitcoin as my currency, how am I going to pay for oil in Bitcoin? Like, they won't accept it, will they? So how have you sorted your weak currency problem?
Sorry, my mic fell off. To be honest, it's way beyond my knowledge. You know, I remember just kind of skimming through the article, and I think the gist of what they were saying is like, these sort of currencies require big risk, you know, in terms of like the business side of things and organizations. When Tesla did it, they're like, oh, we're coming out and we're going to sell cars through Bitcoin. You know, accept Bitcoin as payment. The whole world was like, oh, wow. And then I remember Jack his name. All I know, his name is Jack. He's
Twitter
the guy behind
Jack.
Twitter Jack and Square and stuff. Similarly, I think he was like, yeah, this is great. We need to follow this as well. So everyone thought, oh, this is going to be it. Like, more people are going to carry on. But then in the same sort of vein, there were discussions about countries. You know, what's going to be the first country to really adopt this?
Estonia. That's what my money's on.
Probably. You know, I only heard about Estonia because I watched this film, and somebody in the film said, "Oh, Estonia is meant to be the world's most technologically advanced country." You know, and I was like, "Really?" So I had to do a little Google search. I was like, you know what? This is probably the first time I've ever heard of Estonia. But here we go. It's like Wakanda, bro. It's just a secret sort of technologically advanced place. SubhanAllah. Speaking of technologically advanced, did you see the video of the drone I sent you?
Oh, is that what you sent on WhatsApp?
Yeah, bro.
Okay, let me see.
You can see my flying skills.
Oh, okay. It's like small. You're flying it inside.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that is flying skills. I mean, okay, the rotors, or are they called propellers or whatever, they're not exposed. I thought you were going to like...
They are a little bit. They're exposed on the top and the bottom, but not on the sides.
Okay, you got to watch your kids' fingers.
Yeah.
MashaAllah. Yeah. Have you... It's got a camera, I'm assuming, on it, right?
No, I think it's just...
Oh, it's just purely for flying.
Yeah.
For like...
The box is on the floor, but I can't bother to...
There are those ones where it's like... They have like race courses for drones.
Bro, so this is it. So this is the first time I ever flown one. And, you know, it took me a bit of practicing. It only has a few... I don't know how long it has battery life, because it didn't last that long. But... yeah, obviously I'm used to controllers and stuff from years and years of video gaming. However, in a video game, you're generally always positioned behind the vehicle that you're driving or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's always easy to...
Left is left to you.
Left, right. Yeah. So with that, you have to, as soon as it's away from you and like either left or right, that's it. You have to completely switch your mind to think which way.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So that made me think, like, because they have those race courses. I'm like, how in the world do they know? You know.
But they have a camera on the drone and they've got goggles.
Oh yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that makes sense.
So they do it from the point of view, first person point of view thing.
Well, that would be a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing holding drones back is the battery life, isn't it? Because I think these top drones, they can only fly for 20 minutes, I think.
It's the code to crack, bro. Once they crack that battery code,
Yeah,
bro, we're going to be... You know those pictures of the future where everyone,
exactly.
like...
There's flying cars and all that.
That's literally the code, bro. If we had really, really, really good batteries, everything would be... To be honest, we've made amazing improvements. Like, USB-C chargers are incredible. I mean, they're a lot better than before.
Faster?
Yeah, a lot faster. So, the only USB-C port I have is on my PlayStation 5. When you plug it into the front, it's got a USB-C slot, and I charge my phone on there better than anywhere in the house. Is that what? Yeah, you've got one there. Oh, what phone is that then?
S10, Galaxy S10.
Ah, what have I got on mine? Oh yeah, mine's a Galaxy. This is my work one. Some sort of Samsung Galaxy something or other. As you can see, it's all smashed up. Yeah, but they charge really quick. Really, really quick.
Yes.
Apple Watch, bro, uses a... don't know if you guys can see that. It's like a magnetic thing that you put it on.
Yeah.
That charges super fast.
Oh,
Like I
really?
literally put it on there for a little bit, and then I come back and I'm exactly where I want to be. Maybe not 100%, but
this is where I
for the
think
day.
Apple, iPhone users, they miss out on it because the newer iPhones have fast charging, but you have to buy an expensive fast charger for it. Yeah. Whereas the like Samsung, it will just come in the box kind of thing.
See, this is what my dad was having a discussion with me about, like American Western technology and then like Chinese technology and infrastructure and stuff. And he made a point that like the problem with the West is that they're constantly in a battle of copyright and trademarks and who's got what and whatever.
Yeah.
So it minimizes competition in a sense because like, okay, we've got a lightning cable. Apple got a lightning cable. That's ours. No one else can have that. No one's going to copy that.
Yeah.
And no one can really make increments on that apart from us.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
However, in China, because everybody copies everybody and there's not really those kind of laws, they just constantly they're constantly iterating on each other's work all the time. You know, you could have one particular charger, and then like in a couple of weeks they'll be like, "Oh, we'll grab that charger. How can we improve that? We'll improve it, and then release that, and then that's it." And it's just a constant battle. And because of that, you know, I mean, they probably already have, but like just surpassing the rest of the world in technology, because they're not limited by these inhibitors of creativity, which is, you know, the trademark war.
Yeah. Obviously, they also have the other side, which is like when you get too innovative and too powerful, then and the government doesn't control you, then they shut you down. Like, happened to the other Jack Ma. Yeah. So yeah. But that's kind of the open. You know, the idea of open source is like that, isn't it? It's like anyone can iterate on this base that we've created. And there was this guy I met here, and I was in a discussion. They're talking about homeschooling, and they're talking about starting up like a micro school. And he said, look, you know, you want to do it your way, and that's cool, do it your way, but make it open source, meaning share your learnings with other people. So even if they're not going to join your micro school, let them learn from your micro school. And I thought that was kind of a light bulb moment for me, because he said open source. I think of open source. When I think of open source, I think of like WordPress, you know. But you can open source anything. You know, you can open source a school. You can open source whatever, madrasa. You can open source anything really, and then people can take that base and run with it. So it's
interesting that if you two, I always think of this concept when it comes to the deen and when it comes to sharing, you know, the message of Islam and the Quran and Sunnah. And you know, some people, I think, obviously, there's always friction on the line that's drawn between somebody's work, so somebody's Islamic work or course or whatever, and then that which can be shared, or that which can be proliferated. You know, there's a difference, I suppose, right? Let's say somebody of knowledge, a da'i, a scholar, etc., producing a piece of work, a book, for example, and then wanting that to be shared in any way, shape, or form. You know, whether that's through sale, whether that's just put it out there, and their main priority is just getting it out. And then there's another distinction between maybe the same individual seeing it as a financial sort of obviously for fi sabilillah, but also the financial vehicle to sort of support themselves and their families. And it, you know, I think a lot of Muslims, they do assume that it's always the first one, that fi sabilillah, I can share this, I can take this, I can share it with anyone, I can give it to anyone, etc. And I think you have to just be, I mean, I'm not arguing for either or. I think it's down to the individual, but I think we always have to be quite careful on what we're participating in, what we agree to. You know, we go on courses sometimes, we sign up for courses and we read the small print and it says this is,
you may not reproduce.
Exactly. I think we have to be quite cautious of that, because, you know, not to rephrase what we said last week about when I got, was it last week or the week before, when I got a bit uppity about parking in private property and stuff like that. But once again, you know, essentially one could argue that if you're ticking a box and you're you know, signing your name here and you're agreeing to this whatever terms and conditions, and you're essentially agreeing to a contract, and that contract may dictate that you cannot share that without, you know, the permission of the individual. I've noticed that a lot in like graphic design, for example. You buy fonts or you download fonts or whatever, and it's got all these sort of licenses on it. There's a lot of stuff. It's the concept of barakah, isn't it? Because stuff like fonts you can get away with quite a lot, actually, quite easily. Someone I know, they just got, like, after years of putting a certain photo on their website, they got contacted by someone saying, you know, that's against the copyright. You're not allowed. You don't have a license to use that photo, and it's been there for years. You don't really think about it a lot of the time. And now I think he's kind of stuck, because they're like, look. Like, he thought it might be a case of he'd just take it off and they'll leave him alone, but they're like, no, you have to like pay this much. I'm surprised though, because I've bought font licenses, and usually all they ask for is an email. So they'll be like, okay, you know, would you like to purchase this license? Yes, I do. Put your email in, sweet. They send you the font and you make the payment. So then I don't understand how they would know what you're using it for.
No, this is a font, bro. Sorry, a photo.
That's what I mean.
A photo.
Oh, a photo. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you meant font. Sorry. But even so, even if it was a photo, surely I don't know. Maybe I never bought a photo, so to speak. But for all of my experience has always been, put your email address in and purchase it, and then they don't know who's behind what. If you bought a license for, because somebody would have bought the license for that photo. You understand?
Initially.
Someone would have bought a commercial license for it somewhere in the world. So how do they automatically know that this website isn't from somebody that's bought a license in the past? Do you understand?
That's where the blockchain comes in.
It might be that they actually do reverse image searches on the photo and just email people at random.
Oh,
Or,
100%,
just do like a spot check. This photo is probably, have you got a license for it? And then you're like, yeah, here's the license.
Yes.
That's probably the only way of policing it.
Yeah, but fonts maybe is harder, definitely. But this point of Islamic knowledge, I was thinking about it because I saw Mufti. He's got obviously his hundreds and hundreds of videos on his YouTube channel. And then on his website, he's actually selling a lot of stuff. He's selling obviously like stuff like merch, but he's also selling courses, which are recordings of what he's teaching. And he's got the books, like I know at least he's got like the Q&A compiled into a book.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it hit me, but I was thinking, obviously, let me just quote the ayah because this is the whole point. The whole thing around, can you sell Islamic knowledge? I think it comes down to this ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah. So Allah says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَكْتُمُونَ مَا أَنزَلْنَا مِنَ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَالْهُدَى. Right? Those that, what's the word? يَكْتُمُون. They, hide it, I suppose. They hide it. ما أنزلنا من البينات والهدى من بعد ما بيناه للناس ناس في الكتاب أولئك يلعنهم الله ويلعنهم اللاعنون. So the curse of Allah is on the one who hides the truth and hides the guidance. Okay? So if you're going to say like, I've got this knowledge, I'm from my teacher, and now I'm going to hide it from you unless you pay me, and you could be under the threat of the curse of Allah. Right? However, what I was thinking because I don't know this for sure, but I thought with Mufti, he's covered himself because he's like, look, all is fully available for free on YouTube. Not to mention my local classes is like completely free. But if you want it as a book format, if you want it as an organized course, that's what I'm charging for.
It's the facilitation of it, isn't it?
Yeah. The actual knowledge is completely available for free. So I think that's how like people kind of go about that, right?
Definitely. It does make me think a lot about just our community in general, the Muslims in general, and this sort of sphere. Like one thing that came up was this did frustrate me a little bit. So during the whole what we're still experiencing, let's say the struggle in Palestine and the social media response and Muslims sort of collectively getting together and raising there was a piece of artwork, let's say, that somebody produced, and it was essentially depicting the Dome of the Rock on an old man. So his head was the Dome of the Rock, and then his torso was the rest of the sort of pattern and calligraphy and mosaic upon it. And he was sort of holding his head. People might recognize it. Anyway, I kept seeing that being shared, right? And then I saw it being shared by a somewhat famous Muslim personality, da'i, so to speak. But this individual had put his name on top of it. Like he put his @ on the photo.
Okay, typical.
And I was just like, I got really annoyed by that. And I was like, why has he done that? That's really annoying. Okay. And then somebody I follow shared the original artist who made a statement. And I think the original artist wasn't from an English-speaking country. Can't remember exactly what country it was. But he basically made a statement saying, like, all these people are stealing my work and claiming it for their own, going to the extent that they're taking away my... they're erasing my...
The last thing I heard, bro, was you were saying that he was saying, people are taking my thing and removing the name.
Yeah, so people would take it. He was saying that, and I was going to say,
is it this, by the way?
No, similar to that.
Okay.
Similar to that. I'm gonna have to look for it because it's gonna frustrate me. But it left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth because oh god, this is it. But I need to. The artist himself is from Palestine. I'm just going to talking about.
Yeah, let's just continue. Man. So, so it annoyed you. You said.
Yeah, sorry. Did you see the photo?
No, actually.
Oh, this was it. We're having technical difficulties today,
okay,
guys.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so the artist himself is actually Palestinian. But yeah, it did leave a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Although, considering he's Palestinian, maybe it doesn't anymore. But my thought was like, look at us, we're trying to raise awareness, and we're all fighting over who owns this photo. But at the same time, it's like there is a phenomenon. I'll be honest. I think there's a phenomenon on social media that the quickest way to get social media buzz is partaking in a discussion or an event or current event or a trend. Because with all due respect, and may Allah keep me sincere, I felt certain things, so I've tweeted about certain things with it during this conflict, and those things have gone somewhat viral, and then it makes me think like, how does that make me feel? Should that make me feel that I've achieved what I wanted to do, is get the message across? Or has that like messed with my intentions a little bit? Am I now sort of chasing that kind of buzz that I got? And if I'm feeling like that, then there's going to be people that are better than me, and there's going to be people that are worse than me, isn't there? So may Allah, make us the best of people. But then it obviously got me thinking. It's like, where does our sincerity lie when it comes to issues such as this, such as speaking for the haqq, especially on social media and stuff, or making statements like this? Are we doing it for the sake of change, or are we doing it for the sake of fame? Oh wow, that's a book. Write a book. That's a title. But it's interesting, bro. Like, there's obviously a lot going on. May Allah aid them. But we have to constantly keep assessing ourselves as individuals.
What I don't understand is, I mean, people took that picture, they put their, whatever it is, username, whatever on it. I mean, I guess they're trying to get themselves out there. Okay, they're using this as a vehicle to get themselves out there. They're not necessarily claiming they made the image, right?
So yeah, possibly it can be interpreted like that, and that's maybe the likely thing. I think what it is when you post a photo like that, which is so thought-provoking, it's going to be shared. But for it to be shared, that they want to put a stamp on where it came from, so that people are more inclined to go back to that page.
Yeah.
Now, is that coming from I want people to come back to my page so they can benefit, and I get more good deeds that way, or is it, I want people to come back to my page so I have more followers or get more engagement? And then what happened with this particular individual is that loads of people, after that, the original artist put out loads of communication about this is mine and people are stealing it. Everybody went on this guy's page, even though he wasn't actually he wasn't listed on the guilty party, so to speak. People commented saying, this is from so and so, you need to give credit, blah blah. So the day, he hasn't deleted the photo, but he has put on the comment the credit to such and such artist. But but funnily enough, obviously because he hasn't deleted the photo, the @ that he's put on the photo is still very much there. So I know this is such a minor issue, but it's just it gets into the details, the finer details of our day-to-day sort of abuses with this kind of thing. Like I'll give you an example. I posted something, and I don't actually know where it came from. This have you seen this?
Save. Okay. Yeah.
So this I don't know who created this. I couldn't find who created this, but I found it and I edited it for this sort of animation effect on top of it. However, I came at that as an angle of, this photo is really cool, I want to share this photo. I'm not saying I've made this photo.
Exactly.
I want to share it, and I believe, because it's hashtag save Sheikh Jarrah, I believe that was the message, that's the intent behind it, is to get that spreading so people are more aware of it. However, one could come at it from a perspective of, you didn't make this piece of art, why are you posting it on your thing?
I feel like that's like completely fine. I think if you're not pretending like you did
it's
it,
yours. Yeah.
then that's fine. The second
yeah.
thing is, I can't get it through my head why I would add my username to someone else's picture.
Well,
like,
so
just for me,
I
it
know
feels
this,
like wrong. Like,
yeah.
like just like I'm not saying, Annie, if we go down to the letter of the law that it's going to be wrong, but I'm saying it just feels wrong. Like you didn't do the work for that, so don't try and ride off it. I don't know, man.
I've been seeing this a lot, bro. This during, especially this conflict. I say conflict. Is it conflict? Is that the word I want to use? No.
Oh, the BBC got you, bro.
They
Sky
got me
News
good.
got you.
But during these events that are going on, subhanAllah, I saw something else like this. So it was shared. Where was it shared? Allah knows best. It was a Moroccan Facebook page that had essentially shared a screenshot from an Algerian Facebook page, right, or something along those lines. Now, the Algerian Facebook page, the Algerian post had a picture of Palestinians celebrating the opening of a new hospital, okay? And on top of it was like a banner that said the hospital's name. But then like in the top left corner, cutting off half of the banner, was a big Algerian flag emoji, an Algerian flag emoji, right?
Yeah.
And then it said in French something along the lines of, look at the Palestinians celebrating an Algerian hospital that's just been opened in Palestine, okay? I was like, okay, that's really cool. But then I saw the Moroccan thing said, how dare these Algerians take credit for what Morocco has done? This is the original photo. And to be honest, the original photo did have, if you take the emoji away, what's actually in the photo is a Moroccan flag and a Palestinian flag. And actually, on the Algerian photo, if you look in the crowd, you can see one person holding a Moroccan flag.
Oh.
But you have to look really like it's cropped slightly. So, and I was just like, I remember sitting there thinking, okay, Allah knows best who's who. I mean, I'll be honest, it looks more likely that it's a Moroccan hospital and Algerian page is taking credit for it. Yeah. But the fact that whoever's running that Algerian page just couldn't be happy that, alhamdulillah, that not just that, whether it's just Morocco or not, like the Muslim ummah is doing something, the Palestinians are benefiting. But this is it, we're so busy fighting each other over flipping who's helped who or who's helped more. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's just help, and the problem is
definitely the bad side of like nationalism and all.
Yeah, and I think we are ignorant to how much that permeates within us, because it's easy for us who are, alhamdulillah, conscious of Allah, conscious of this religion, and that's our priority, that we bubble ourselves into this religious bubble where it's like we think that everyone in those countries back home, quote unquote, is religious and is religiously conscious, and that's their priority, and these ideas of nationalism are far away, etc. And people are wondering, why isn't such and such country doing this, or why isn't such and such people doing this? It's people are far removed from these sort of realities, because on the ground the nationalism is in people's blood, really and truly, and this partisanship that we have amongst us is very much embedded into our culture.
I mean, didn't the Prophet ﷺ define asabiya as looking down on people who are not part of your group? Right, this seems like
it's
the
like tribalism
definition of it. Like there are some, I find there are benefits of nationalism. Not saying that I would like to fan that flame, but I'm saying the fact that it exists, there are some benefits. But seems like absolutely clearly what the Prophet ﷺ is saying is not to do, Yani.
Definitely. But it's interesting, isn't it, how vast we are, and how, Muslims in general, how far we spread across the world. But we are so, when people say divisions in the ummah, they tend to be directing it towards religious divisions, like sectarianism. But actually, no, think about divisions in terms of nationalism,
racial, even.
But then even within the country, you're going to have areas, this regional, person, that person, regional, and it's important, I think, to rectify that and address that internally with ourselves, because we're all going to have biases, bro. Like, bro, I remember when I was growing up in Tunisia, I might have already mentioned this a while ago, but I didn't know anything about Algeria apart from what people said. And during that time, they used to say that Algeria, oh, you can't go for Algeria, there's loads of bandits or this or that. And it was just, so I had this very negative understanding what Algeria was. I didn't know anything about it. And now, like the same with Libya, people say, "Oh, Libya's got this, Libya's got that, etc. Stay away." All this other stuff, and it's just too much, bro. It's just nonsense. It's all nonsense.
Where you're from in Tunisia, is it closer to Algeria or Libya, like culturally, or just?
So we're like we're half an hour from the Algerian border, so it's ideally it'd be very similar to that side of Algeria.
Okay.
But I remember, like me, when I went to Algeria, there was one of my wife's family members was from near the Algerian border of Tunisia, and when I met her, her accent was like completely Tunisian. Like I was like, oh, well, you sound Tunisian to me. So yeah. So it's interesting. SubhanAllah. But
Let me ask you something.
Go for it.
But you have to be 100% real. You know me, yeah. I've got like a Facebook page, I guess. I've got a YouTube channel. Obviously, I've got personal WhatsApp, whatever. I've got an email list. I haven't said anything about the current thing happening in AlAqsa and Sheikh Jarrah. Do you think there's something like blameworthy about that?
I had this discussion with my wife yesterday. She mentioned to me that there's this famous Muslim influencer person that hasn't made any comments, and she's getting loads and loads of abuse for it. Okay. I said I came from the angle that this isn't the first time this has happened to this person. Last time it happened, they made a poorly judged statement with good intentions. I believe it. They said it in good faith. I think it was about Black Lives Matter. They said it in good faith, probably not understanding in depth the situation, and because of that, they got cancelled. And now they're getting cancelled again for not saying anything, because people just assume that if you have a massive platform, then you're obliged to speak. Okay, you have to speak. So I think. But then again, that applies to that person because they've got 1 million followers or whatever it is, or thousands of followers. But then you as an individual, I still hold that. I'm like, nobody's obliged to do anything in terms of. No one's going to be criticised not for speaking. No, you should be anyway, because there's a lot of reasons behind that. You're quite an educated person. However, somebody such as her may not be educated on the issue, or may be reluctant to speak about something they don't have, they're not educated on, or may feel like they're not the experts to do so. And I think. The problem is, and you're probably going to agree with me here, that we've lulled ourselves into this box where we think that social media is our life, and anything that we say on there is what we do, and anything that we say on there is what we represent. When actually, it's turned from being a window to our life, like a small window, into our entire life. So if you're not putting it on social media, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? So it's like
false. Yeah.
That is it, and I think we have to try and detach ourselves from that, but we spend more time probably on our phones and in the social media than we do engaging with people outside. I know definitely that most of my engagement is through my phone. 90% of the people I engage with, apart from my own family, is on my phone, as opposed to out in the wild, so to speak. And it's skewed my perception of reality because I haven't spoken to anybody about the Palestinian issue outside of my house, outside of my family, but mainly outside of my house. But I definitely have online. Have I sat down and spoke to somebody, or, a colleague or something? Like even today, bro, I went into work, I sat in the office, and I was on one side of the office, and I could tell on the other side of the office there was some colleagues, so to speak, in different departments, talking about the issue. One person admittedly said, "You know what? I think they were out patrolling or whatever, and somebody came up to them and said, assume that they don't know anything, or." This, you knew this and that, and I think it was a protest. They must have been patrolling around a protest. They came back and they were having a discussion about it, and they were like, I'll be honest, I'm not too educated about it. All I'm seeing is what's coming out of the news, which is loads of children dying, etc., etc. And then someone else was like, oh, what is it like? This has been going on for years, hasn't it? Always been issues there. And then a supervisor sort of was there as well, and he pretty much laid down the history of it all. Unfortunately, he started his history lesson from like World War II, right, when really it kind of started way before that, and it kind of removes Britain's role in the whole thing. It's like, oh, This land was given to them, and this land was given to them, and whoa, slow down. Who gave who what? Do you know what I mean? Let's address that first. But anyway, I can't remember the point of this. Oh yeah, so essentially they were having a discussion about it amongst themselves in person, and
I got turned away from you, bro.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And I was quite. It's really loose today. I was quite hesitant. Like, should I get up and get involved in this conversation? Should I do the dawah, so to speak, right now? Or should I just play it by ear and see how they... And you know what? I was thinking, and then it made me think. It really did make me think how vocal I am on social media, but then how comparatively silent I may be in situations such as that. Now, nothing they said was necessarily wrong. In fact, it was quite balanced for who they were. Yeah. You know, they even admittedly said, oh, we're selling all these weapons to Israel, for example, and so we've got a hand to play. And I say we, they mean the British government, etc. So I was quite pleasantly surprised that it wasn't just, oh, these terrorists. Even, so to speak, he even mentioned, oh, Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organization in these countries, but it isn't with us, so we can't automatically view it as such, and it's actually democratically elected. And it's quite a balanced sort of conversation. Mm-hmm. So I thought, and I thought, for that, in that sense, if that's the case, there's no need for me to jump in, because that just makes me look like the guy that has to
too eager,
you know, especially when it's people I don't know. If it's, you know, although I know them, I'm not like that. I don't, you know, I'm not friendly pally with them in that sense. Yeah. However,
I think it's always good when people come to you to ask you, or if you just happen to already be in the conversation.
Yeah. But this is the thing, like, the issue with Palestine isn't necessarily viewed as a religious thing amongst the non-Muslims. Okay, so for me to jump into that conversation, even though I'm not from there, would be like, what gives you the right? How are you entitled to speak about it? Because then I start dragging it into a religious thing, which we believe it is. However, the wider public don't necessarily see it as such. They see it behind the nationalism lens, or behind the land lens, or a dunyawi lens.
They see it from the religious thing, but in the way that we don't see it, right? So, like, we don't see it like it's Muslims against Jews, because Jews were there before, and that's fine; they can stay there, right?
Of course.
But we see it as it's our right as Muslims to control Al-Aqsa, and Al-Quds is our third holy site, etc. That's our angle. Our angle is not so much Muslim versus Jews, isn't it? So it just happens these Zionists are Jewish, you know.
I think for social media, bro, you just have to be yourself and that's the only thing I can advise anyone who wants to use it, because we've been through it for years. I've had my ups on it, I've had my lows on it, I've had all sorts of experiences on it. I think I benefit quite now because I purged my Instagram account. I don't know if I told you. I had basically had all these followers from years ago and stuff, and I found this tool that can just basically erase people that are inactive, erase people that aren't part of my niche, all this sort of stuff. So I completely I've completely wiped loads of people away, thousands of people away, which was great. I really liked that. And also Twitter as well. I remade a new Twitter last year, so it's not as busy as it used to be. And actually, when it's like that, it's okay. It's natural. It's nice. But as your audience grows, you do obviously feel a pressure to conform to what they want to do. Yes, and I think that's why I'm saying, like, it's always important to be yourself, but also be honest with yourself. If you don't know about an issue, don't speak about it. And listen, when you said, am I doing the wrong thing? Certain people might say that to you. People might comment, where's your post about Palestine? But who are they to you? They mean nothing in your life because you don't know them. Unless it's somebody sincerely advising you who is a friend of yours or someone you know. Like if I came to you and I said, I mean, you've got quite a good following. It'd be really good if you could share this particular thing, whatever. And you make a decision there and then, that's fine. That's fair on you. But that wouldn't change me and your friendship, would it? If you said, no, look, I don't really want to get into it, I don't know much about it, I'd be like, fair enough, no problem. And that wouldn't change how I see you or feel about you. But for someone who
see it very much as a moral thing.
Some people see it as a black and white issue for them to whether to post or not. But everybody's got their ways.
I feel like it's dodgy. Like, I didn't post because I don't post. Like, the only kind of content that I put out these days is this podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm being myself on this podcast because we're talking about it, and naturally, because I have concern for Al-Quds and Muslims there, then we're mentioning it, right? So it's very natural. But outside this podcast, I do not post content, so why would I now go and do that? However, I think about if I was putting out content regularly, would I still post, you know? And then if I post about Al-Quds, would I then post about this, you know, Uyghurs and then Myanmar?
And that's it,
I become a news channel.
And that's it, yeah.
So it's, I don't know what I would do because I've not really been in that situation. But I think, you know, honestly, what I would do is I would post about certain events when I just personally feel like I want
This is it. This is what I mean.
And people would give me stick for that because there would always be some event that I don't talk about. But I can't help the fact that either I don't know much about that, it's not burning a flame in my heart, so I'm just not going to talk about it. Or I don't really care or care for that issue too much. Like I'm questioning if it's even a legit thing. So I think that's what I would do. But we'll see, bro, when I'm like a super influencer.
But this is it. It's important to be, once again, the underlying point is to be natural and be yourself on it. And you obviously lose yourself once you gain a large enough audience because you're desperately...
You become a slave to the audience.
Yeah, you become a slave to the audience and you're no longer yourself and you become whatever they want you to be. And ultimately, that is what's killed a few influencers in their time, suicides and stuff like that. And not to get into the suicide topic again, but you know, I remember, like I said last week, you know, that particular YouTuber that I used to watch, and his audience is what drove him insane, bro. Because what would happen is he'd react to things, right? He would do reaction channels and stuff, and his reactions were always over the top. But then he had to keep up in the ante because people wanted to see that. But then, like, what happened is you started seeing cracks in his mental health, and people wouldn't take his. He had such a large audience that you'd see his comments all the time, like the live streams. People putting clown emojis, calling him a clown, thinking that he's just being funny and stuff. To the point he had a mental breakdown, a mental breakdown on a live stream where the police were called into his property to basically take him to a mental health institution. He had a bit of a barricade moment where he'd locked himself in and they were trying to get in, blah blah blah, and he's live streaming the whole thing, and people are like commenting like, oh, he's crazy, like look at him, he's acting up again, this is crazy, how is he, do you know what I mean, he's doing it, some people saying he's doing it for views, etc. And he was literally having a mental breakdown on TV, on YouTube, and he was sectioned, I think. Obviously, it was in America. He was sectioned, and then he came out, and then he was trying to rehabilitate. But then it happened again, until finally he started putting out cryptic stuff. People thought once again he's playing some sort of mind games online, and then before you know it, he put out one final video, and then he committed suicide. And it's like, oh, and then there was this big mental health awareness thing about YouTubers and about this and that, and it's just like, wow, you know, this culture of appealing and being a slave to your audience, and your audience driving you to where they want you to be and what to do is what's...
You're a performing monkey for the crowd.
And I think
because there is still that disconnect, the audience somehow doesn't feel it's real. But it's extremely real.
It's real for the individual.
But because it's virtual, they feel like it's insignificant. Whatever I type in these comments, it's insignificant. But it's extremely significant. And I guess that's the power of believing and understanding that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, everything you type you'll have to answer for. And it reminded me of the ayah, in tuti' akthara man fil ard yudilluka an sabilillah.
Subhanallah.
You obey most people on the earth, then they'll misguide you from the path. And literally, what is, you know, I'm talking about the top 10, 20% of influencers. What is that other than obeying the audience and giving them more of what they want and taking up a level and up a level? What is that? It's exactly that.
But also silencing yourself on things that you want to say, right? Like,
because of them,
It may be like, it's not an issue of you don't want to post. It's an issue that you do want to post, but you can't because you're pressured not to, and you don't want to split or divide your audience. You know, this happened with... Who did it happen with recently? Happened with some celebrities, but like, I don't know if you know IGN. Have you ever come across IGN? IGN is like a gaming sort of entertainment.
I remember that, bro, back in the day.
News,
IGN, GameSpot.
They're still about. So IGN. Sorry.
Apple Watch moment.
IGN. they put out, the writers at least, so a lot of the writers stuff, they put out of nowhere this article full of charity links to the Palestinians, innocent people, children, trying to raise money, etc. And I was like, IGN? Fair enough, go for it. And then they changed their banner on their website for a Palestinian flag and all this other stuff. And it was like, wow, everybody was shocked because these are one of the people that you just don't expect to talk about it because they're very much in a niche entertainment, video game sort of journalism. So when they did, everyone, like at least the buzz I saw on Twitter was like, yo, this is amazing, this is really great, etc. Anyway, it wasn't until maybe 24 hours, maybe a bit less later, that it was taken down, and then the leadership of IGN wrote a big like open letter saying, they wrote a post saying, actually before that there was an Israeli side of IGN, so it was IGN Israel that put up a post saying, yo, where's this coming from? We didn't sign this off. Like, this is completely, we endorse. The American side I think is the main hub, but the American side have done this without sort of talking to us, etc. Anyway, so it's a bit of an internal dispute. Then the next day I saw a post, they've removed it, and the post from the editorial or whoever the leadership there, they were like, yo, this was made essentially without us, without consulting us, blah, 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 blah. We're going to donate $25,000 to this particular charity. However, whatever. They're just some PR nonsense, okay?
We're going to give $25,000 to the IDF as well.
Probably. But then, so there was, the audience was like, it didn't last very long and people were disappointed, etc. But then today or yesterday, the people that put the post up, the writers again, put up an open letter to their leaders within the website. So instead of just within the website, so another article, they put an article saying an open letter to the leadership of IGN, and they basically said, like, I can't believe you take it down. This is for innocent people. The charities that we've listed here are completely like, vetted and verified. It's not something that we made up, so to speak. I don't know how you could stop people from raising awareness for innocent people and children that we're trying to raise money for. Here's all the writers that have signed it. Like, so they actually started signing their names on this open letter, which was interesting. But it does, not to make this side really political, but it does make you think, like, how dark their hearts must be when it's something so... When the charities are very obviously objective charities that are focused on... I'm not talking about like an Islamic charity or whatever, but very much focused on children, innocent people, victims, blah, blah, blah. And yet there's still a blockade on that. There's still... like, you don't see...
This is the influence, bro.
Yeah, you don't see any discussion, even by those that support Israel, by saying, well, let's hope that after this all settles down, we can go and help their injured or help the people that are homeless. Or, do you understand? It's like when people say, oh, there's civilian casualties. Yeah, well, we had to because we had to target a particular area and the civilians are there. And that's not our fault, is it? But there's no follow-up of that. Oh, and we may have hit some civilians and we're going to do our best to try and rehouse them, sort them out. There isn't any of that, is there? So that just shows where the intention is. Because if you really wanted to close the loop on that facade and say, we don't mean to hit civilians, we're trying to target people, but they're hiding behind civilians, but we'll do our best. That's what you do. You close the loop by saying, we're going to do our best. We commit this much money to try and rebuild the hospital or rebuild it. None of it. None of that happens.
They're bloodthirsty.
None of that happens, bro.
They're bloodthirsty.
Oh, that's it. I'm going to hack into your Facebook and write, they're bloodthirsty. That'll be your post. That'll be your post, bro. I'm going to take that clip of you saying they're bloodthirsty, and that's can be your definitive post.
My job done, bro.
You'll get some likes, bro. That's all it is. As long as you get the likes, you get the approval, your followers will be happy.
It's so sad.
It is, isn't it?
There was one, Ahmed al-Shigiri, the guy that made Khawatir.
Yeah, I saw that clip.
He was being criticized for not saying anything. And of course, the assumption is that he wasn't allowed to say anything because he's in Saudi. And
he did.
He did
A
eventually.
clip.
Yeah. But
was it an old one or a new one?
No, the clip came like 3-4 days later, right?
Okay.
So I heard about that and I just thought, like, of course, any Muslim would, be upset and they would make dua and all of this, right? And probably he should make his stance clear. Probably, right? But I can't get behind this idea that it's not enough for me to do my part. I need to go after other people and attack them and criticize them for that. Like I just feel like that's kind of none of my business. I don't.
Yeah, I think it's just obviously the thought process that these are people with influence that should capitalize on their influence and do something about that. Do something to promote change, and I can understand that thought process.
But
I really can.
You really have no idea what's going on in the guy's life.
This is what I mean. Yeah.
Like, what if he's taken 30 days off social media? What if he's doing like loads of action, but just not on social media? What about this? What about that? You have absolutely no idea.
Husn al-Bann is a treasure that very few possess, isn't it? So
there's that whole element, right? The other element, right, is I question the impact that like a post has, for example. Right? I do question that. That's why I feel like there are just so many things you can do and no one will know about, like good things for this cause that you can do, no one will know about, and then people will criticize you just because they don't see it. But that, like, the ultimate ikhlas is to do stuff in private, and nobody knows but Allah. And so it's like, okay, now you're actually going like completely against that by saying no, not everything should be done in public, in private with you and Allah. No, everything must be done in public. And now it's like going the opposite extreme. Whereas Allah says, sirran wa alaniya, in secret and in open. So
it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to quantify and measure what effect sharing stuff does have. However, if I talk about myself as a consumer of content, then I definitely know. Like, okay, I had the past week, I've had like Al Jazeera Live on non-stop, like whether on my phone or on the TV in the background.
You're a full Arab dad.
Yeah, but I've realised only because it was the most balanced sort of channel that I could find regarding the issue, right? However, whilst having that in the background, I still also had the Twitter running all the time. So I had the hashtag searches all the time. So I'd constantly refresh, see what's happening, see what's new. And the things that would pop up there wouldn't make it to the news until an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours later. You'd find a clip and you'd be like, SubhanAllah, why is no one reporting on this yet? And then I realized later, it has to be verified, and it eventually gets to the news, right? And it tends to get to the Arabic one way before it gets to the English one. And the thing is, the English one caters to an English audience. So they do a segment on the Gaza, what's happening in Gaza, and then they go, this is another documentary we're doing, this is another news story. Whilst the Arabic one is very much 24/7, this is what's happening all the time, and it's a live stream, so to speak. So it made me think, like, these people are sharing this stuff, and I definitely do consume most of my news, if not all of my news, from social media. So if somebody was to share something that's going to inform me, then yes, I'm going to be more informed through social media than I will do from any other platform.
Isn't that a journalist's job?
Of course, but I think this is it. It's the disillusionment with journalism and with established news agencies, and how social media has given that torch to the individual, and then the individual can propagate that. Obviously, the difficulty is discerning with the truth from the falsehood.
I mean, news is one thing, right? But the type of stuff I'm getting on my WhatsApp is literally like, I don't know, a photo with writing on it. I don't know, dua for Gaza or whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, that's it, yeah. That stuff
is different to that. I think they're two separate categories.
Yeah.
But by the way, I'm quite clear on this in my head. I don't value like news much whatsoever, meaning I don't value keeping up to date on all the latest this and that. I don't value it. Like this thing about Sheikh Jarrah and Al-Quds and Gaza bombing, and then Katab al-Qassam retaliating, all of that I receive that information without going on any news websites, any kind of social media, this and that. I get that, right? I can't stop it reaching. Right? And I find that good enough, that I get the gist of what's happening, which allows me to be aware. It allows me to know, like, I can make a dua for it. I could contribute in whatever way I see fit, without going and being that consumer of that news again and again, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I also feel like, I was just saying this to my wife, I feel like on one hand, of course, it's good to know about this. On the other hand, like, and you know, people criticize people when they don't post about it and this and that. On the other hand, a month ago, right, was nothing happening, like in Al-Quds, was nothing happening to the Uyghurs, and nothing happening to the Rohingya, there's nothing happening in Syria, there's nothing happening in the, you know, prison cells of this and this country. Like, so there's so much going on, right? But all of a sudden, because there's a consensus has been created that now, if you don't post about Palestine today, you're bad. Right?
Yeah.
But a month ago, if you don't post, that's fine. And today, if you don't post about the Uyghurs, then it's fine. And so it's all very mixed up. And this is what happens, I think, when we create this. I don't know. I don't even know what to call it. But I think people understand what I'm saying. You know, it's like it's a madness. It's completely a madness. According to some people's standards, we all need to become journalists and news channels. You know, according to them, in order to keep our morals high. And I believe that I'm going to hear the snippets here and there to understand what's going on. And I believe that action is way more important than sharing stuff, posting stuff, venting, all of that. I believe avoiding sins, doing istighfar, making dua for them. I do believe in boycotting. I believe these things is what I should be focused on. And there are certain projects that I'm trying to work on that hopefully will improve the ummah. And it might be something that doesn't seem linked to our brothers and sisters in Gaza or in Al-Quds or whatever, but I see that connection, and I've decided that's my long-term thing.
And that's ultimately the best message to get across. I mean, the posts that I have put up have always linked back to that. If there have been any posts, it's been about that. It's been about how this all, you know, whether it's today it's Palestine, tomorrow it's China, day after that it's the Rohingya, wherever it is, it always links back to us as individuals and how
take a personal responsibility.
Yeah, like take a personal responsibility.
You know, that sadness, you know, and emotions turn that into fuel for action, right?
Yeah, and it's about. Let me try and get the tweet up because. I forgot
one of those name. Viral, one of those flames.
It was in response to is his name Firas Al-Khatib?
Okay, rings a bell.
He wrote Lost Islamic History.
Okay, yeah, Firas Al-Khatib,
yeah. Bear with me, I will find it. I will find it. I will. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Should be coming up. Here we go. So he wrote. Okay, so he quote tweeted something. The original tweet was by someone called Salim, who wrote, 90,000 Palestinians pledge in unison to defend Al-Aqsa and Jerusalem, a message of defiance that is reverberating around the world. Israel is suffocating Jerusalem, but Jerusalem finds a way to rise. And he attached this video, which you may have seen.
Yeah.
Okay, now Firas Al-Khatib had then quote tweeted that and said, this needs to be shared. There's a gaslighting movement among leftists to hijack Palestine and turn it into a nationalist / race / socialist / police violence narrative that erases Islam. Yeah. The religion of the beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam will always be the focal point of Palestinians in Al-Quds. Okay.
Yes.
And then I replied to that, would you not agree that at least the nationalist hijacking has been well established for decades? Like, this nationalist thing has just always been about. And I said...
The 60s, probably.
Yeah. And I said, I have always felt that the biggest perpetrators of this are the Muslims that are too guilt-ridden to practice their faith, and so they disguise their passion in nationalist motifs. Which means that...
He came with it.
But it's true in this... Well, I believe it's true in the sense that
I agree with you.
The things that people scream and criticize you for the loudest are the easy things to do, right? When I say to you, why don't you post something? Why don't you wave a flag? Why don't you? Do you know what I mean? Why don't you go and shout in the street? Those are relatively easy things to do. But when you say to me, when was the last time you prayed salat? When was the last time you made dua sincerely? When was the last time? Do you understand? People don't like that, and I put up another video about that because they start saying
that. You know, that's easy or that's nothing, or
not realizing that let's put everything in context, not just this issue, every situation that Ummah has ever had in context. the Muslim ummah was at its peak when our spirituality was at its highest, and since our spirituality waned, so did our situation in the dunya. And once again, we're up and down. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honors us when we honor His religion, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dishonors us and disgraces us when it's at the bottom. Now, someone rightfully did comment on some stuff and messaged me saying, "Are you saying the Palestinians are the cause of their own downfall?" I said, no. I said, I'm the cause of their downfall. You know, I said, Allah can judge them and Allah can judge me, but I know me and I know I'm the cause of their downfall. Do you understand? I'm not talking about them, and people wanted to twist that. So when I say that and when I send that message, people want to twist it, possibly out of guilt. Once again, deflection. Are you? Whoa, wait. Let's not talk about me. Are you saying that they're to blame? No. I'm saying I'm to blame first and foremost, and maybe you're to blame because you're right here and we're living in comfort. And look at us, you know. Ultimately, but at the same time, you know, people can bounce back. Like people often share the whole how many brothers are praying Fajr in the masjid, but look how many are out protesting. Okay, people get very touchy about that. People get very sort of, and maybe that's like the extreme end of the argument. But the point still stands. Religiosity. I mean, sinning is one thing, and the Sahaba used to fear their disgrace just through sins. Let alone people who don't even fulfill their obligations. There's a difference between fulfilling all your obligations and then sinning, because we all do that. But then there's another difference between that and obviously not fulfilling your obligations and also sinning on top of that. You know, the other sins.
Yeah. I guess it's also not as simple as like we're all, or most of us, or whatever, a lot of us are bad Muslims, and therefore we're in this state. Because that is definitely part of the narrative, but as usual, it's more complicated than that, right? Because
of course,
we could say a portion of the Muslims are sinning, or they're doing the minor shirk and this and that. You know, may Allah forgive us, right? There is that element, right? And like Aisha, she said, you know, if I would get a headache, I would say it was because of my sins. So that's like the go-to reason for bad things happening is you blame it on yourself, on your sins, right? But there is also the other element where, Allah created us, put us in this dunya to be tested, right? So Definitely. There is the element of tests, and sometimes you might be, like the Prophet ﷺ said, you know, the most tested are the prophets. You know, and then those who are most like them in terms of piety, and those who are most like them. So there is the element of being tested, and then there is the element of Allah purifying you in the dunya, right? So it's very actually individual, isn't it? So it could be that part of the reason that the Muslims are suffering here and there is because of my sins. Then it simultaneously it could be that sister in Gaza who was bombed and her shahada was accepted could be because of her piety, actually.
Yeah, of course.
Could be simultaneous.
And that's the way they view it. You know, how many videos are you seeing coming out? I mean, you not be seeing them, but I've seen a few videos that are coming out that, you know, people are losing their family members and there's smiles on their faces because they, with yaqeen, believe that they're, you know, shuhada and they're going to Jannah, etc. So, but you know, that this sort of discussion came about in my group chat, and it led me on a bit of a wild goose chase looking for statistics, because I was like, I wonder if anyone's ever done the statistics on, first and foremost, what is defined as practicing, but then where do you apply that, and how do you? And I found some stuff from like the Pew PEW research. They're quite famous, aren't they? I don't know when this was dated. I think it was like 2012, but it's like a chart that just shows. Okay, this particular chart, I've got quite a few, but this one says percentage of Muslims who favour making Sharia the official law in their country. Okay,
I remember that one,
yeah. Now, the thing is,
many people would want that without praying.
Yeah, but not just that. Many Muslims are going to be Muslims that are, you'd ask them that question, and they will say, yeah, of course. Because they think like they should, or like not just that, maybe even praying. If you ask them, because there's another one, I can't find it straight away, but there's another one that asked how many times they pray or how frequent they are in praying. But if you ask anybody that, they're going to say, yeah, all the time. Of course I do. It's rare, depending on where they're asking the question, that people are just going to say, oh yeah, I don't. Of course not. But it was interesting. You know, a lot of countries, as you can expect, are quite high. I think like Afghanistan was 99%, but Turkey was 12%. You know, just to compare the.
When was this? 2012.
I think it's either like 2007 to 2012, and it's going to obviously change by now. But what is this one? Okay, here's the Salat one. So how many Muslims pray several times a day? And I think this is I haven't got a date on this one either. But okay, so Turkey, so there's they've split it into pray all 5 salats or pray several times, but not all 5. So the all 5 is 27% in Turkey.
Not bad. And
then 15% of that pray several times, but not all 5. So that's 42% of the whole country that supposedly pray. Okay.
That's quite good, right?
It's quite good, yeah. But at the same time, but at the same time, I don't think that reality has seeped into a lot of the Muslims that practice in the UK. They just assume it's a Muslim country. The Muslims should be doing stuff. Okay. Kazakhstan, 4% total pray in any capacity. Let's just say any capacity. 2% in all their prayers. 2% just some of their prayers, and some of them are going to be like Jummah. You know, I go once a week for Jummah, so I pray. You know, Albania 7% in total.
These
you know,
communists, man, killed us.
But even so, look, Tunisia, 65%. It's not as high as you'd want it to be. I don't know if that's going to be 100% true.
High, though.
It's high, but once again, you have to take into account the guilt. The guilty answers, you know, because I know there's a lot of people in Tunisia that I could ask on the street who I know don't pray, who would say, yeah, of course I do, all my prayers. Yeah, exactly. So Egypt, exactly, bro. Egypt 60%, 53% all of their prayers. You know, Jordan 68 to 54 all of their prayers. I'm just going to do all of their prayers because that's more.
Yeah.
Okay, because yes, Morocco 67. Even so, look, I didn't even realize this was here, but it says Palestinian territories, 74% total, which alhamdulillah is great. But once again, we have to reevaluate.
Yeah, but the context, yeah.
Yeah, and the context. Number one, the context, but number two, like, I think a lot of Muslims just assume Muslim countries people pray. You know,
really? Yeah, I didn't think of that. I thought in the West it's more, they don't pray. We're religious here. They're not that enthusiastic about this.
It's a bit of both. I mean, you got to remember as well, because we bubble ourselves. We keep bubbling ourselves. So like all of my Muslim friends are alhamdulillah better than me and more pious than me, and they're pious Muslim friends. But I don't lull myself into this false notion that everyone else is the same. Like, we're everywhere, because there's some brothers I know, they're like, why do people in such and such country don't do this? Why? I was like, you do realize like most of them don't even pray. Like religiosity is very far down. So where are you getting this from? I'd be interested. I don't know if they did Saudi. They did Saudi. Anyway, this information is easy to find. It's all over the internet. But it's just.
You didn't say Algeria, bro.
I don't think they were asked.
Okay.
Yeah, they probably didn't let them in.
Probably.
Because I only got Morocco, Tunisia, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, blah, 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 blah. Pakistan, 50% total. I thought it'd be more.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be more. But I mean, like I said, don't know how accurate it is, but it gives you some idea.
Yeah. Another point is actually the more like further, nuance to this whole thing is, the common thing of like the surrounding countries, Muslim countries surrounding Israel, they've done nothing, right?
Yeah,
they've done nothing, and they're traitors and this and that. So you'll get some people fully on that vibe, and then you'll get some people saying, no, it's your fault for your sins, and it's actually both, isn't it? It's like, of course, if you're the ruler of whatever Muslim country, and you've got an army at your disposal, and you do nothing, you're responsible for that 100%. At the same time, maybe that guy's in charge because of your sins.
This is it, yeah.
Both,
and that's what I'm trying to say. Like, you have to strike a balance where we point fingers, and it's easy to point the finger. But what can you do today? You can't do anything about him now. But you can probably do something about him in generations to come when the population has shifted towards something, inshallah, that is better.
Exactly.
And this is it. When people say the leaders are the reflection of the people, people are like, this is it. This is what I was trying to get to, actually. Now that you put it in context, it makes sense to me again. This is what I was trying to say, is that these countries, you saw how many of them pray, and you've seen the numbers. So when the vast majority of people don't pray or aren't religious or don't want Sharia, for example, then naturally those people that end up in those positions of leadership are going to be very similar to the people that they sort of, in terms of mentality, the people that they're ruling over. If you had, it'd be very strange. Well, no, it probably exists, but it'd be very strange if you had a country that's like 99%, upon a correct understanding of Islam, that's their priority, etc. And just somehow they've just had one person that's leading them that is completely,
I mean, that does happen.
This is it.
Like even in the UK.
I was going to say it does happen.
What's that
of
school
course
that they all go to?
Eton.
Yeah, like Eton is completely
it does happen
from the rest of the UK.
It does happen, but you've got to remember, governments are not just one person. Their entire. I mean, it depends on what country we're talking about. But there's infrastructure. There's thousands of people that work in organisations like that. And it's incremental changes that can happen that make larger change. Right. It starts as simple as like local police forces. It starts as simple as like local councils. When those people that are in those positions are easily accessible, it's easy for the common man to enter those institutions, whether it's the council, whether it's the police, whether it's the healthcare, do you understand? And when spirituality seeps into those organizations, you'd like to think, bi'idhnillah, obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of all things, then it trickles up, so to speak. Then the local mayor, what I mean? All these sort of...
I think it's very hard to do calculations around this stuff.
No, of course.
But like I said, there is the responsibility of the person with authority, and there is our individual responsibility. There is both kind of equally, simultaneously. I personally, I don't know if I would say it's like completely directly correlated like that, because when you look at Egypt when Morsi was in power, what was the people when he got elected, or when it looked like he was going to get elected, what were the Egyptians excited for? They went to the border, bro.
Yeah, but
because
also
that is the feeling of Egyptian people. And their people with authority over them were the opposite for decades.
Whether you want to accept the narrative that they put out, the democratic election was like 51%. Which some people would say that just shows that Egypt is very much divided in half. Half the people wanted him, half the people didn't. So that when they wanted him, half the people were out in the streets supporting him, and when they wanted to get rid of him, the other half were out in the streets trying to get rid of him. Do you understand what I mean? So it just shows you that even if
there's good numbers on one side,
even if the leadership is what you want, if you don't have the numbers behind him on the streets, the numbers of the population. Okay, let's throw it on its head. You have an amazing leader, for example. I'm not saying Morsi is or isn't. I'm saying hypothetically, as an amazing leader, right? But then his people are not what he wants. Another thing.
By the way, I'm not paying any traffic fines to this amazing leader.
But another thing, like you were saying, like, okay, you said armies, people do whatever. People don't understand as well. Obviously, there's nuance behind everything. But like, if a Muslim leader comes out tomorrow and says, all right, we're sending my army, fi sabilillah, to such and such, the people that aren't Islamic, the population that isn't, would be like, no, you're not. We don't want that. We don't want a war. What are you talking about? And then there'll be issues.
Most armies in the Muslim world have, secular. Full of seculars. And they'll be like, we don't want that, number one. And then they'll start protesting or rioting within their own country, trying to stop their army going out. Yes, of course. Think about it. I think, bro. So, okay, let's take Turkey, for example. And we'll wrap up here because I need to go. But Turkey, for example, let's say hypothetically, Turkey sends its army tomorrow. Like, we're going, that's it. Sending our army, fi sabilillah, blah, blah, blah. The people that aren't on it, the population that aren't supporting that, which may even be a majority, judging by those statistics, right? They might be like, whoa, we don't want to get dragged into this. We don't want to get dragged into your war. And they'll start protesting in the streets like they did before, when they start rioting, when they're trying to get rid of him. Remember when he extended his elections and all that other stuff? Do you understand? That kind of thing. I don't think that's true.
Bro,
I think... tell you my proof for that.
The only issue, my concern is that you have to then fight a battle on both fronts, your internal and your external.
No, I get that, but I don't think the people are opposed to this specific thing. Why? Because Turkey, one of the most secular countries in the Muslim world, the army has been involved in Iraq, in Syria, in Azerbaijan/Armenia, and the people kind of accepted that. So why wouldn't they accept?
Because those my response to that is because those don't bring the war home to them. I feel like something where you're going into that arena where they are very well sort of protected by the West will then suddenly impose all sorts of stuff. Look, the wars that Turkey's got involved in doesn't really have much of an impact on Turkey. Do you understand? Going into Syria doesn't impose sanctions or physical combat on Turkey and Turkish civilians. But at best they'll have sanctions put against them. At worst, they'll have an actual war in their own country. Do you understand what I mean? And this is what I mean. I think this the fear that they're not going to be able to control their own people by doing that. There is
definitely the element of people being united under the similar values and having similar priorities. Yeah.
Ultimately, we go back to what the Prophet ﷺ said, and when he spoke about us being divided in this time, he said that it's because of the love of the dunya and the fear of death, And ultimately, what I've just described is the love of the dunya and the fear of death, whether that's from leadership or the population.
Yeah, as we described, like it's all individual, and there are people who. Literally, there are Muslims, who knows what percentage that hate the dunya and love death. And then there's vice versa,
And this is it. And that can be applied to the individual, me and you, and it can also be applied to rulers and leadership and governments and armies and whatever. Every one of us will love the dunya and will hate death. And that can be applied to any of us. So when we share that advice, we share it to the whole ummah, not just this person and that person. I love the dunya and I hate death, so I need to fix that. And he loves the dunya, he hates that, so he needs to fix that as well. And that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah.
Because if you hated the dunya and you loved death, you just say whatever you felt and make whatever decision you thought was right and let the chips fall where they may, so to speak. That's ultimately what would happen. Anyway.
Let me say this last thing,
Go for it.
You know what I would advise people? If you are going to go on social media and get involved in, all the posting that's happening and stuff, I would suggest you post positive things that make Muslims feel positive, okay? And you might say, well, what is the positive to share? But what I mean is, for example, like the video you mentioned where, the mother is saying goodbye to her son who's now shaheed and she's smiling. That is a positive thing. A negative thing is a video of an entire building getting exploding, And I feel like there's far too much of the latter being shared, and it's the whole victim thing of, oh, look what they're doing to us, look what they're doing to us. But the Prophet ﷺ, he did not give us this narrative of victimhood. He did not give us this narrative. He gave us the narrative of you're either victorious in the dunya or you're shuhada. That is the narrative. The narrative is we're cool regardless. Allah gave everybody the dunya, but he only gave certain people the akhirah. This is the Islamic narrative, and so we can be part of creating a truly Islamic narrative by sharing the more positive things, right? Showing that there is Muslims who smile in the face of death. There are Muslims who retaliate. There are Muslims in who knows random parts of the world who support their brothers, and the only link between them is Tawheed. These are the more uplifting, positive things I think we should share, rather than, like what you said, these kind of more the leftist narrative, or whatever you want to call it, is, oh, poor Palestinians. I don't believe that poor Palestinians thing. I believe that 5-year-old who was killed, they're going Jannah. They skip the whole test of life. They're going Jannah. So, abshir, basically. I think if we are going to get involved, make sure your ratio of positive stuff is much higher,
Khairun nas, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about Shem during these sort of calamities. But may Allah rectify us, bro, because ultimately it's a rectification thing, isn't it? This should be a reminder to rectify ourselves, and a reminder that just because it happens to some people in the world doesn't mean it can't just happen to us, just because people lose lose their whole lives on the other side of the world doesn't mean it, can't just end up here, who don't lull yourself into a false sense of security just because you live in this place or that place and you've got internet and Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? all this sort of stuff. Anyway, thank you for listening to the Mind Heist podcast episode something or other. 115. Good guess. Oh wow, look at our all-time players, bro. I just had Libsyn on the background.
Don't reveal. You know we never reveal that stuff.
Why though? What's wrong with us? Why can't we reveal
I
that
just feel like
stuff?
we need to plan it out if we're going to reveal. Bro, let me say two things before we end. Number one, I told you this, but I didn't say it on the podcast. I met a good brother here who, he bumped into me in the masjid. He's like, yeah, nice podcast. So all the way over here in Turkey, people recognizing me out here, man. Very nice brother from Eritrea, actually. Speaking to him, I met his dad and stuff as well, and I was like, damn, East Africans are the sickest. East Africans, Eritreans, Somalis, and even I would include Sudan in there. Yalla, why not? Yeah, they're very, very nice people, bro. Very nice. Very friendly, hospitable, and they take the Islam seriously as well.
Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. The second thing is, remember, you've got your 6 days of Shawwal to fast. And, often we leave it till the end. So just because some people might listen to this episode in 2 weeks or whatever. So I just want to remind people now, inshallah, if you fast 6 days of Shawwal, then it's like you get the reward for fasting the whole year.
Alhamdulillah.
Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, shadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Alaikum assalam.